Who actually runs the government, in your experience?
Not who you think it is. It's not even people who we vote for. When you look at what happened when President Biden had that infamous debate with President Trump, it exposed the reality that many of us have known for a long time, which is that President Biden has not been the guy calling the shots. He has not been the guy making the decisions, nor has it been Kamala Harris, for that matter, nor will it be if she is elected president. It is this cabal of, the Democrat elite, the woke warmongers, made up of the likes of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and, Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and, people who are in the military-industrial complex, people who profit from us being in a constant state of war. It is those in the administrative state, in the national security state, who derive more authorities and ability to take away our liberty when we are in a heightened state of crisis or war. It is their friends and billionaires and people in media who all derive their power from being able to have a figurehead that essentially they can control.
Good morning, everyone. I know that's an old video, but I had to play it again because it was so incredibly fantastic. I'm going to play it again at the end of the show. I just dropped my headset. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Good morning, Kim, and good morning, Karen. Hopefully you guys are having a good morning. My headset has been having some issues. I don't know why it keeps falling out, but I hope you guys are having a good morning. I'll tell you what, I'm so frustrated today. And that's part of the reason why I went back and I searched for that video. And Tulsi's got some great videos, but when I saw her talk about this, it really won me over, to her. Not that I was really necessarily on the fence, but I used to not ever see her as one of us, but I think she's woken up. And after she made that video, guess what happened? Remember, they put her on that Quiet Skies list. And good morning, Rob. Good morning, Ruth. Ruth says, working, we'll probably check out on replay, and glad you were up and running. Thank you so much, Ruth. I appreciate that. We're definitely going to be talking about that because I'm really frustrated today. And that's why I went back and looked for that video about Tulsi Gabbard. I do this show completely for free. I don't receive $1 from any source or anyone. In fact, I pay to have the show because I have to pay for the restreaming service. And obviously, there's days when I'm supposed to be working this early in the morning and I find other people to some, employees to take my place. As you guys know, I own a security business and there's work at all times in the security business. So I lose money doing the show, but I do it because I want to be informative. I want to talk about issues with you guys. It's what I've been doing for, many years now. And it's just what I do. And, I'm not making any excuses for that. I don't mind it being a free show, quite honestly. But what upsets me is that I've never had social media monetization. There's been times over the years where Facebook, I don't have enough subscribers on YouTube to be monetized. Rumble, I'm not on Rumble yet because Rumble is such a huge pain to start each morning. I've got to figure out how to do all that, but I at some point will be on Rumble. And there's really no other. X doesn't pay, for shows or anything like that. Now, Facebook does monetize some people for various show content or videos or so on. Well, there's been times over the years where Facebook has monetized my account. It doesn't last for very long because as soon as I make the first political post, it's done. And I didn't even know that Facebook had reissued my monetization. And I guess they did. But, I was just saying yesterday how frustrated I was with Facebook because right when I got up to that, I think it was almost 700,000 views, then all of a sudden, guess what happened? They're like, nope, no more. And it dropped by 80%, which is insane. And then just the other day, like I said, one of my shows had 817 views. I think it's up to 860 now because people, as the shows are on, people continue to come on and watch, some people who are my Facebook friends, some people who I don't know, but they continue to kind of pop in and out and see the show. So that counts as a view. Well, then or was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was yesterday, the show had like 125 views. And I'm like, okay, something's not right. Because usually by the time the show is over, I'm at least at like 380, 400 views, something like that. So yesterday when I looked, it was like 125. I'm like, something is wrong. So I went into my professional dashboard. I say, oh, I've been restricted. Why am I restricted? There was a whole host of reasons why I was restricted. One of them was because I shared that post from, is it Eagle, American Eagle, where they had posted Sydney Sweeney in her jean jacket and jeans. And she's a beautiful girl. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them using her in an ad. And so I shared, American Eagle's, basically their response to people who were complaining about it, which it was funny. And I said, oh, so funny. So I got restricted over that. And this is what's even crazier. I had shared some videos about the earthquake in Russia. For some reason, I got in trouble for those. Unoriginal content. Okay, well, how do you share information if I'm not in Russia? I can't create it. So you're only allowed to share video you create. You can't share videos that other people create, news organizations, without getting zinged. I guess that's the case. There was like 6 videos I had shared. All of them were about the Russian earthquake. All of them is what got me restricted. It is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I've ever heard. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Adrienne. So frustrating. And there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. I just have to say, I don't care. You know what? If they continue to restrict the show, then you know what I'll do? I will just not post the show on Facebook anymore. I will go, not that they care because they don't care. I'll just start posting it on, I will figure out how to use Rumble, and I'll start posting it on Rumble, and I will be done with Facebook. And they're a friend of mine who isn't even really a big political person, but she had posted something. Do you know they banned her? They banned her. She didn't even have a Facebook account at all anymore. And when she signed up for another account, they banned that account too. It's crazy. It's like, so the reason why I played that video at the beginning of the show, and I'll play it again at the end of the show, because really nothing ever changes, does it? We may have the greatest president in office right now. We may have the greatest administration in office right now, but the deep state truly does control everything down to your freedom of speech, and not just here in the United States, but all across the world, all across the world. Excuse me. I was just reading, and anything that happens over in Europe, we're usually a step behind them. I was just reading over in the UK, they're putting breathalyzers in all new vehicles. Did you see that? It's a safety feature. So if you live in the UK, you buy a vehicle in the UK, all new vehicles are going to have a breathalyzer, for your own safety. It kind of reminds me that we're just one step away from being an Islamic caliphate, because obviously in Islam, there is no alcohol allowed. And I'm guessing now in the UK, they want to make sure that people, and I'm not advocating for people drinking and driving by any means. It's about taking away your freedom for it's a tough one. It's hard for me to even argue against it, quite honestly, because people should definitely not be drinking and driving. However, I also don't think that they should install a breathalyzer in every single vehicle. So anytime you go somewhere, you have to breathe in your breathalyzer for the car to start. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Good morning, Donna. Jay says now the outraged are going off on a new Dunkin' Donuts ad. Oh, Jay, I haven't seen that yet. I'm not surprised. They're going to have something to complain about, aren't they? There's always going to be something to complain about. And the Sydney Sweeting ad, quite honestly, let's go back to that for a second. What was wrong with it? What was wrong with it? She's a pretty girl. They put her on their I don't even know what they did. She's a spokesperson for the brand. I'm not even sure. I wasn't even aware of it. What is the big deal? Okay, so you can see some boob. Most days you can, mine too. Sometimes you just can't help it, right? I just but it goes back to that same Islamic caliphate, doesn't it? They want women to be covered in a black burqa. They don't want to see pretty women on covers of magazines or as spokespeople. They want us all to run around in a black burqa so you can't see any part of our body or any part of our face. That's really what it's coming down to. It really is. Putting breathalyzers in cars because gosh knows, under Sharia law, you're not going to be drinking any alcohol, right? And we're just moving in that direction in these little bits and pieces. And that's exactly what they want. Oh, you cannot put a pretty woman on. God forbid she might show a little bit of skin. I feel like we're just moving into this ultra conservative era brought on by Democrats who don't even realize what they're doing. They don't even realize it. Let people be. Let people be. If people want to show some cleavage, if a company wants to hire a pretty girl to put her as their spokesperson, let them do it. But we know what the left wants, right? If you're not a transgender man, a transgender female, then they don't want you to be their spokesperson. Anything other than that, that's perfectly fine, which is what's so funny because under Islam, of course, if you're gay or trans, guess what they're going to do to you? It's not pretty. I don't want to say the word because if I do, I'll probably get banned again today. Jay says, when I lived in the Middle East, those with money had alcohol. Of course, Jay, there's always special rules for people who are in a different class above the others, aren't there? There's always special rules. Kind of funny how that works, isn't it? Not much different than here in our own country. Of course, special rules for all. And I'm not talking about the people that you and I know. We all know some very wealthy people in our communities. Not talking about those people. I know some extremely wealthy people. In fact, some of the wealthiest in the country. However, I'm not talking about those people either. Nope. I'm talking about the people who are untouchable, the Obamas, the Pelosi's, the Clintons, those types of people. The people who have made their money on your tax dollars, not the people that we know in our communities who are, capitalists who have businesses or are CEOs of companies. Well, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the untouchables, the Obamas and the Clintons, Pelosi's in the world who have special rules just for them, right? You can't insider trade. What would happen if you got caught for insider trading? First of all, who would you even know to have insider trading? And if you did, you'd be in prison in a flash. Look at all these people, half of Congress not in trouble for insider trading because they are a class above, aren't they? They are a class above. Donna says Gen Z already wearing black yoga wardrobe. Yeah, it does make you wonder, Donna. They're doing it to themselves. And Jay says, ugly people hate pretty people. Had it been an overweight and person of color, they wouldn't have said anything. You're right, Jay. I saw a comparison about that with that Lizzo, where they had Lizzo on a cover. And they're like, okay, so Democrats are perfectly fine with this. But when you put somebody like Sydney Sweeney on, it's like, nope, not a pretty girl. Not going to happen. Funny how all of that works. My goodness. So lots to talk about today. I'm so frustrated. I'll spend the whole hour talking about being mad if I'm not careful. Some of the things I want to get into today, very specifically, we're just going to jump into things. I read a story last night about Kash Patel. One of the things he found when he jumped into his position was that the FBI, as director, of course, of the FBI, had all of the Russia Gate stuff, all of the materials about the Russian hoax in burn bags. Did you read that? In burn bags. So, what they hadn't already gotten rid of, they had more information already ready to go in a burn bag. And they probably knew this day was going to be coming, of course. They just didn't get it all burned in time. And it's pretty interesting. And that goes to show how far back has this behavior been going? We've always talked about it. People have called us crazy for I don't know how many years now because we say, and again, I love the FBI field people. If you work for the FBI and you're anywhere above the top rank, you're doing a fantastic job. But if you've made your way to the very top under a Democrat administration, then that means you are playing the game, right? And I don't mean our regional managers or anything along those lines. I know a lot of those guys. I'm talking about the tippy top. You have played the game to get there, and you are the people who's instructing the other guys, the good guys, to put all this information into a burn bag. We've talked about it for years. We've always said the FBI is complicit in all of these different investigations, that they have had the ability to pick and choose who they prosecute and who they let go, right? And now we see it in action, and we have validation. A lot of validation, of course, in the Trump administration. Some of that validation is that now we know that, yes, obviously they were destroying records. Anything that could implicate Democrats, they were going to destroy, including a lot of that information about the Russia hoax. And now they didn't do it fast enough. That's the problem. They didn't do it fast enough, or maybe someone, left those intentionally for Kash Patel to see, somebody who was good in the administration and didn't want to partake in all the evil, wrongdoing that was taking place. Rob says they are upset because in the ad, she said she has good genes, and they're turning around saying she means she has good genes. Well, I would say, Rob, she does have good genes in both senses of the context. People are saying, but back to your comment about Sydney Sweetie, there are people who are acting crazy because she has blondish hair, blue eyes, and white skin. I mean, okay, we're not trying to say that only white skin and blue hair and blonde eyes is pretty. There are a lot of absolutely beautiful women who are Hispanic, Latino, Black, Asian. We see them all. It just happens to be one ad. They chose a white woman with blue eyes, and like a light brown, blonde, golden hair. What is the big deal? I don't get it. I just don't get it. But these days, I guess you can't use white spokespeople for anything. Isn't that right, Drew Collins, who has just joined the show? Drew says, release the files. Drew, those files are going to be released. We'll see what's going to happen. What files remain are going to be released. But you know what? We don't need the files anymore, because guess what we have? We have Maxwell, don't we? She is a walking file. Just think about that. Whatever was in those files is what the FBI and the Department of Justice was able to recover. But Ghislaine Maxwell, she was there. She knows everything. She was the right-hand woman. And some say, girlfriend of Epstein. They must have had a really weird relationship, I'm guessing. But, considering that she procured young women for him, and yet she still had some type of alleged involvement with him. But she's got it all up here. She knows everything that happened. And so we have our best resource already. Now, how far are we willing to go to get that information is another story. And Kimberly says, if they chose Dylan Mulvaney, it would be okay by them. Oh, of course it would. If you choose a fake woman, of course it's going to be okay with Democrats, right? Because that's exactly what they want to see on the cover of every magazine. And Drew said, she's a liar. Well, Drew, you said release the files. So she is the file. She is a living, walking, breathing file of what happened with Epstein, right? And so are we not to believe her, what she has to say? She's not going to gain anything from it. Donald Trump already said, well, I shouldn't say Donald Trump. Speaker Mike Johnson said she will never get a pardon. I mean, Diddy's probably going to get a pardon, but Maxwell, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but Maxwell will not get a pardon. And so therefore, we'll see what she comes up. Allegedly, she has given 100 names of people that victims were trafficked to. But and Kimberly says, oh my God, I thought we were rid of Drew. Drew has been lurking, Kimberly. Gosh, Drew. I think I remember Drew commenting on shows I was on back in 2012. A long time. Drew's been around for a long time. I don't think he's going anywhere. But here's something I thought was interesting that I heard yesterday, is that Donald Trump was interviewed. I don't have a copy of the interview, but I read the transcript. And he was being interviewed. I don't even know who he was being interviewed with. I just saw this random transcript out there. And then I was reading about it, going back and looking and trying to verify. And the story goes, we've always said, it's always been believed that Donald Trump banned Jeffrey Epstein from coming to Mar-a-Lago because he made a comment about one of Trump's friends' 14-year-old daughters. So he said, that's it. You're not coming back. That's inappropriate. I've read that story, I don't know how many different times, Well, in this interview, Donald Trump said no. Why he was banned from Mar-a-Lago is because he was stealing our employees, that he stole our spa, particularly there's masseuses and their spa employees at Mar-a-Lago, that Epstein would come out and visit. And then when he would leave, his staff or himself maybe had reached out to these employees at Mar-a-Lago and had lured them to work for Epstein. And some of these people became victims of Epstein. So they started out at Mar-a-Lago. Epstein lured them away. Now, this is a fact. It's a fact. This is not me guessing, or I'm not just putting information out there that I didn't research. It's a fact. You can look it up. Now, a couple of the women who were interviewed said that Donald Trump never touched them, never made advances to them. It was just a job at Mar-a-Lago. Now, when they went to work for Jeffrey Epstein, it was a whole different story. As a matter of fact, the most famous of all the notorious of all of the Epstein witnesses, remember Virginia Giuffre? I know I never say her name right. Giuffre. Well, oh my gosh, Drew, Marvin Davidson passed away. Well, Drew, I had no idea. I had wondered why I hadn't heard from him in so long. Thank you for letting me know. That's a sad day. Marvin and Drew have been followers of various shows I've been on, again, since probably at least 2012. Well, Drew, I'm sorry about that. I hate to hear that. We'll have to touch base on that another time, privately. And so Virginia Giuffre, whatever her name is, she was an employee of Mar-a-Lago. I did not know this before. Some of you may have known this. This is new information for me. But she was an employee at Mar-a-Lago. And then Jeffrey Epstein visited Mar-a-Lago, met Virginia Giuffre, and hired her away from Mar-a-Lago. Well, as we know, when she was hired away, went to work with Jeffrey Epstein, she became, a very outspoken victim of Epstein. She is the one who claims that she was taken advantage of by Prince Andrew. Remember? Now, where I think things get a little tangled up is I always thought she was underage when that happened, which means she would have been underage working at Mar-a-Lago, which might be okay. I don't know what she was doing at Mar-a-Lago. But either way, Epstein lured her away, and she gave testimony that said Donald Trump never made advances to her. It was just a job. He treated her very well. And then when she went to work for Epstein, that is when she began this cycle of, abuse in the Epstein ranks. So I thought that was interesting. So Donald Trump said that he gave Epstein 2 chances. At one point, he told Epstein, hey, stop hiring my people and luring them away from Mar-a-Lago. These are good employees. We really need them here. They're the best of the best when it comes to our spa, masseuse treatments. And so Epstein said, okay, I'll stop. Well, then Epstein came back again and did the same thing. He lured more employees away. And then Trump said, that's it. You're banned. You can't come back. And so according to Donald Trump, that is how he broke off the relationship with Epstein. He claims he did not know that at that time that any of these, women would be abused or become victims. He did not know that Epstein was this type of person, and he had no idea. And his breaking off things with Epstein had nothing to do with any type of innuendo made to anyone. It was simply about him stealing employees. So I thought that was pretty interesting because I did not know that. Drew says his story changed 3 different times. I don't know, Drew. I don't know if I've ever heard the other story out of Donald Trump's mouth, for him talking about Epstein being banned because of the 14-year-old, daughter of a friend. I've heard that story reported in the media, but I've never heard Donald Trump say that story or any story. I have never heard Donald Trump ever say any story about why he broke his friendship or, societal connections with Jeffrey Epstein. So that is his formal explanation. And I don't really take any meaning into it. I'm only talking about it because it's new news in the Epstein case. And good and well, there's going to be people who do twist and turn that around, like our friend Drew here, who's going to say, sure, he didn't know. What was he doing to these, victims when they were at Mar-a-Lago? And the answer is apparently nothing, because none of them, I have never heard one single victim in any capacity say that anything happened to them ever at Mar-a-Lago or ever under Donald Trump's employment. So I'm going to say that the answer is nothing. But that's what Epstein did. It actually makes perfect sense to me. because that's what Epstein and Maxwell did, is they went around to different companies where they met young women, and they lured them away from various companies and hired them. They went to these, and we all know these stories, they went to these disadvantaged youth camps and found young women who were vulnerable, who, probably struggled. Their family probably didn't have money, and they would pay the parents money. They would tell the parents that they were going to take their daughters and show them some, luxurious trips and these things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to have. And of course, the parents not knowing that these girls are going to end up becoming victims. And I think there's a lot more victims out there than what we would ever even consider, thousands of victims. So I really do hope that Maxwell gives that information. I hope we end up with that list of names. And again, it is not going to be Donald Trump. It is absolutely not going to be Donald Trump. And it's not going to be Obama. We talked about that the other day. Drew, you'll like this one. Obama, again, I'll say it for the third time on this show, since I'm already pretty much banned anyway. Obama is not hanging out with Epstein. Epstein likes little girls. Obama likes little boys, from what we understand, from what is alleged of him in various articles and media information. And I'm not just making this up off the top of my head with all of the different rumors and so on. I don't have any way to prove that. But if I were gonna choose a camp for Obama, it's not going to be Epstein. Now, Biden, yes, Biden appears like he's all about little girls. So of course he's over in the Epstein camp, and allegedly his name is on that list. I don't know that. That's what I'm told. Now, Obama, on the other hand, is also mentioned in the P. Diddy file testimony. What, 17 times we're told? 17 times is what we're told. And again, according to various media articles. Well, I don't understand why this is happening, but I read yesterday that Donald Trump is considering a pardon for P. Diddy. And I honestly, I don't know why. I don't know what's happening with my hair here. I don't know why Donald Trump would consider a pardon for P. Diddy. I really don't. I do not get it. I hope it's not true. I hope that's not something he's thinking about, because I'll tell you what, P. Diddy, he does not deserve a pardon. Some of the things he did were absolutely reprehensible to also younger people. Now, of course, it's all going to be based on those charges. Good morning, Curtis, and everything else. But I'll tell you, I why? We've talked about this from day one, haven't we? If we end up seeing these charges dropped against P. Diddy, if we end up seeing him pardoned, then we know the deep state is much stronger, more prolific than what we even thought. And I'm kind of wondering, Donald Trump has been talking a lot about Obama, hasn't he? He's talked a lot about Obama. And I'm really wondering, is he going to make a deal with Obama to say, okay, we got you on treason. He's already said, we've got you on treason. We're going to indict Obama. Now, again, as you guys have explained many times, and we've talked about many times, Obama has immunity. So there's nothing that's going to happen there. Obama's not going to spend a single day in jail. But Trump also said very publicly, Obama, you owe me a big one. So could it be possible, and this is just my brain trying to think outside of the box, about why Donald Trump would consider a pardon for P. Diddy, who absolutely does not deserve it. And Donald Trump's followers are going to be extremely upset if that happens, because we're supposed to be protecting children and women, and, well, in this case, boys and young men. But we're not doing that, are we, if that happens? So I kind of really do wonder what's going to happen. Mick Gleason, nearest to St. Charles, American Eagle, please. Yes, Mick. That's funny. I was just, we'll talk about that later. We talked about it earlier, but yes, there are some American Eagles, I believe, around the area. Well, you'll have to sort those out. Maybe Sydney Sweeney will be there. She'll greet you at the door. I do see Sydney Sweeney merchandise is probably going to be flying off the shelves. Everybody's going to be wearing denim again. Just wait to see the trend. Because denim had kind of gone out. Maybe it's going to come back in. But either way, I do wonder if Donald Trump is thinking about pardoning P. Diddy so that he can do Obama that little bit of a favor too. Maybe Obama would then say, okay, I'm not going to be dragged into this P. Diddy situation any further, and maybe I'll do something for Donald Trump. I don't think that's true. I don't think any of that stuff's going to happen, but my brain is trying to grasp why Donald Trump would ever even consider issuing a pardon to P. Diddy. I absolutely do not get it. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Some other things going on. We'll keep track of these stories as they continue to move along. Something else I don't understand that's happening right now. Yesterday, remember we talked about how originally, sorry, I have hair, like my hair is like all in my face and it's tickling my face and it's driving me absolutely insane. If you see me keep rubbing my face, I don't wear hairspray. I probably need to go buy a bottle of hairspray so that I can spray my hair when the show starts, so it's not flying all over. Anyway, sorry, it's driving me insane. Back to the show. So, the situation with Russia. We know that originally Donald Trump said Russia has 50 days. Putin has 50 days to agree to a ceasefire. Then he got upset with Putin, as you guys pointed out to me yesterday, that I hadn't even realized that Donald Trump backtracked and he said, nope, 50 days is too long, Putin. We're going to give you 10 days. That's it. 10 days. Well, Medvedev, who is the former, of course, president of Russia and Putin's right hand man, who does often speak out, on behalf of Putin, said, well, hey, Trump, let's not forget about that dead hand switch. And if you know what the dead hand switch is, which is kind of interesting, I'm not sure where why he made this comment, but he made this comment and said about the dead hand switch, and him reminding Trump of this switch was pretty interesting, because the dead hand switch is where if the leader of Russia, it's a Russian policy that they have, where if something happens to the leader of Russia, then they automatically launch nuclear weapons. It's called the dead hand switch. Means that the person whose hand would normally push those buttons is dead or not capable of launching those weapons. And as soon as that person is incapacitated, those missiles are going to launch. Now, that's kind of a crazy scenario because, it seems like with Russia, we're always going back and forth with talk of nuclear weapons. I don't expect any of these things to happen. Jay says the percentage of people who hate the ad is really small. News carrying it because it's headlines and clicks. Possibly, Jay. I don't know how many uh, emails that American Eagle received in complaints. I didn't read it and I really don't even care. But what I do think is funny is American Eagle's response, which is, I think, what's really gotten all of the attention is the response. Because we're so used to seeing the opposite. Oh, we're so sorry. We're so sorry we used a pretty woman with real boobs. She's a real woman. We're so sorry. We're never going to do that again from now on. That's what, we're used to seeing. And for the American Eagle to say, oh my goodness, we underestimated how big her boobs might be. And it was so sarcastic and so funny. I think that is what's gotten all the attention. Not anything else, but it's really hilarious. And it's refreshing to see a company stand up whatever we want in our marketing campaign. We don't care what the far 2% on the very far left think. Left who only wants to see against trans people, who only wants to see trans people on the covers of, magazines or marketing promotions. And I think it's more about that, in my opinion, than anything else. So back to Russia, we'll continue to watch the situation in Russia. Time has run out for Putin in this ceasefire. Time has run out. So then we've got to ask, well, what comes next? Putin doesn't care about sanctions. We could say 100% sanctions against Russia. Putin does not care. They have sanction-proofed their country. We just did a poll, as a matter of fact, and Putin has an 86% positive rating amongst Russians. Why? Because their economy is killing it. It is. They're doing a fantastic job. And of course they are, because if you sanction a country enough, guess what happens? They either crumble or they become stronger. And in Russia's case, they became stronger. Every single time a country imposed sanctions against Russia, they became a stronger country. Their economy became better. The ruble increased in value. And under Putin's leadership, that continues to happen. BRICS is growing by leaps and bounds. Countries are flying off the shelves to join BRICS, and there's nothing that we can do to stop that. In as much as I love Donald Trump, there's nothing he can do to stop it, but he's definitely giving it the effort. We already know that, what did he announce the other day? We got $150 billion in tariffs. which is great. But now here's where things change, is that up until today, I would say I love the idea of these tariffs, and I still will. I still like the idea of tariffs. But a lot of people, there's been no backlash because people didn't feel it at home. That's been the difference. You have not felt the price of those tariffs because those tariffs have not yet been passed on to you. Well, that is going to change because now what's happening is a lot of these manufacturers who, let's just start out with laundry detergent, toilet paper, medications. These things are, a lot of these items are made in China. Okay, well, now Donald Trump has told China, hey, if you don't stop buying Russian oil, we're going to tariff you by 100%. And China says, I don't care, Donald Trump. I don't care, Americans. We're going to continue purchasing for petroleum oil products from Russia because they are our partner in BRICS. We're all part of the same organization. We're going to continue. We don't care if you tariff us 100%. Now, China probably really does care if we tariff them 100%, but not enough to stop buying oil from Putin. Not going to happen. Now, there's a whole list of companies who are now saying, hey, these tariffs are hitting us really hard. Again, laundry detergent, toilet paper, a lot of these different products that are made overseas, not just in China, but in other countries as well. And now they're saying, you know what? We're getting ready to up prices and we're going to start passing along those tariffs to the American consumers. So we're getting ready to see these prices raise. And I think when you start going to the store and you're feeling it in your pocket and you're saying, okay, and I'm not downing Donald Trump. Obviously, he's done some beyond fantastic things. We're in the first year, the first few months, things are going to continue to get better. But in the meantime, what we have to be concerned with is that, if you've seen the graph, most of you probably have. I don't have it to show you right now, but I wasn't planning. I kind of free form the show. I don't have any notes, I don't have anything. And so I didn't think about showing this to you today. But if you saw the graph that was going around, the story was that Democrats were sharing the graph of how high food prices are now. Then they stopped sharing it because you see that under Donald Trump's prior terms, food prices and necessities were pretty low. Then in 2021, as soon as Biden took office, they went sky high. And of course, Donald Trump has promised us that he'll bring those prices back down. That has not happened yet. Those prices have been holding pretty steady. The price of eggs have gone down, the price of gas a little bit, but those, have been pretty steady prices. And so now all of a sudden we're going to have these tariffs and those costs are going to be passed on to us. You're going to go buy laundry detergent and, I don't know how much more it's going to be. Let's say it's 50 cents more. But either way, that is something you're going to feel if all of our products start growing up. I don't know what the answer is to that. I like the idea of tariffs. I think that, it kind of balances out. As you guys know, I am not a fan of that big, beautiful bill. I thought it was way too much money. Was it $4 trillion? Way too much money. And then, yes, we're going to have these tariffs and that's going to offset it a little bit. But if we just got back 150 billion, that's nowhere near where we need to be. Now, in time, that will continue to grow. And Jay says, China can't afford to lose our economy. No, China absolutely cannot afford to lose our economy. But at the same time, I absolutely do not think that China will stop buying petroleum or oil products from Russia. I don't see that happening. And if they did, if China announced today, we are no longer buying oil from Russia, we're going to buy it from America. Oh my God, what Putin would do, I don't even think we want to know. It would be very bad. It wouldn't be nuclear weapons bad, but it would be very bad. So I don't know what's going to happen with these tariffs. Of course, Donald Trump announced we're going to be hitting India with 25% tariffs. A lot of our products are made in India, but it's a little doodads and different things. I'm not too concerned with that tariff. India doesn't seem all that concerned with it really as well. And it's the same situation. India is part of BRICS. Of course, they're going to be doing business with Russia. And if you look at all of the countries that are involved with BRICS, South Africa, Brazil, more countries growing every day, we can continue to place these tariffs and keep raising the tariffs against these countries. But you know what they're going to do is they're going to take a page from the playbook of Russia, and they're just going to make their economies stronger. And then what's happening, unfortunately, with us is hopefully under Donald Trump, our economy also is stronger and will become stronger. But what happens without Donald Trump? Our dollar is continuing to decrease, even under Donald Trump. Our dollar continues to decrease. Now, gold continues to increase, and we need to turn that around, of course, and use that in our favor. And let's see. Jay says, I'm not sure because the stock market continues to set records. If there was uncertainty in the future, it wouldn't be reacting this way. Oh, I agree with you, Jay. And we've got 3 more years of greatness, 3 more years of greatness. And we've really got to ensure that that greatness continues after those 3 years. I saw a campaign ad yesterday and I hope it was a joke, that said Kamala Harris 2028. Now, Kamala Harris would never win against JD Vance. I know a lot of talk that it's going to be Don Jr. who's going to run, or Eric Trump going to run in 2028. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I don't know who the Democrats have up their sleeves. I'm not really sure. And I think that'll change a lot, as time moves on. I think we'll have JD Vance, moving up into that spot is my guess, because people really like him. He's very well received. He's doing a good job, as vice president right now. And God knows, I sure hope that it's not. I hope that Kamala Harris doesn't run. I mean, it doesn't matter. She won't win. Good morning, Elizabeth. Andrew says, all it will do is cause higher prices for everyone. Andrew says, the stock market is not the economy. I don't have a lot of faith in the stock market. Quite honestly, I have some stocks. I don't really care if the stock market does good or does bad. I don't feel like it affects most Americans either way. If the stock market is low, okay. So somebody that put in billions of dollars into the stock market just lost some money. Every day, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Nancy Pelosi, all these folks, there's on some days they're really winning, on some days they're really losing. It doesn't really affect the majority of us all that much, quite honestly. Unless you've got a lot of money invested into the stock market. I really do believe, and I've always believed the stock market is just a total sham, an absolute total sham. And Drew says, JD Vance is very busy in training for a presidential run. I can't talk. And then Jay says it is a direct relationship with the economy. It can be, Jay, but again, I think the credit system, the stock market, I think those are all just big shams against the American people. I really do. And I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying and how it affects the economy, but I do think that most people out there are not heavily invested in the stock market. I know some people who do fantastically well. I have a family member who's somebody else in their family had invested in the stock market, and they live very well, on nothing but the dividends. So you can do really well in the stock market, but the general person, general American, really doesn't have the money it takes to put into the stock market and really do that well. My stepfather invested heavily in the stock market, and he did really well. You just got to be careful you don't buy on margin. And it just depends. If you have money to put in, a good sum of money to put in, then you can do very well. If you've got $5, you might as well forget it. Dottie says a sham unless you are Pelosi, pretty much. Jay says if you have a 401, you care. Yeah, Jay, but look what they've done to 401s. And again, I'm not disagreeing with you, but look what happened to the 401k programs across this country, particularly at times like during COVID. And, of course, under Joe Biden, boy, it was bad, wasn't it? I know people with 401ks are probably a lot happier under Donald Trump, that's for sure. But again, Jay, a lot of Americans have 401k plans, but guess what? A lot of them don't. I wish everyone had a beautiful, fantastic 401k plan. But again, most Americans cannot afford to put money into a 401k plan. Or if they do, it's very, very little, because most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Many of them, of course, below the poverty line and just do not even have that extra dollar to spare. So I consider anyone who has extra money to put into a 401k plan in this country to be doing pretty darn good if you're able to save money. Now, I think anyone that works in a type of position, that a company that has a 401k plan, you should absolutely put in as much as you can, at least to the, to meet the match. But again, I'm no financial expert, but that's what I've always believed. But most people just can't afford it. I know when I was really young, I mean, really young, like in my early 20s, I worked at a company that had a 401k plan, and I did my best to keep up with it and at least meet the match. But there were times when it wasn't easy because, like a lot of young people, with children, we were definitely struggling on the day to day, as somebody in my early 20s. So I totally get it. And Jay says consumer confidence affects the stock market. It does. It does. And let's see. Drew says exactly right. Living from paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, that's most Americans, Drew. Most Americans. So we'll see how that as well plays out. Lots going on. It's every day. Tomorrow, Friday. Hopefully, I don't get so frustrated with Facebook today that I tell them where to go. But tomorrow, just to kind of throw this in, I plan on. I read a report about where all the alien bodies are located across the United States. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. I just want to throw that in. I would really like to talk about it today, but I'm going to save it for tomorrow. And let's see. We talked about the FBI burn bags. I don't write notes for the show, but I write down topic names, things I want to talk about. And then the rest of it, I just got to count on myself to remember. Something that we're seeing a lot of going on. I'm going to talk about two more things before we head out. Then I'm going to show that Tulsi Gabbard video again at the end of the show, because I would really like to remind you all exactly what Tulsi Gabbard, an insider of the government, sees and understands. And the rest of us should also try to understand it a little bit better. I think most of us get it. A couple of things I want to talk about first. I want to talk about how all of these countries are coming forward to recognize the Palestinian state, that they are, in fact, an independent state from Israel. And so, the UK said that if Israel does not stop the genocide against the Gazans, that they are going to declare Palestine. Oops, I'm losing my headset. Like I said earlier, I keep losing it. I think I just have little weird ears, and so it keeps falling out. Oh, anyway, so now Malta has joined in. There's several other countries who are coming forward who's saying that Canada, being the latest one, saying, guess what? We're tired of seeing what Israel is doing to the Gazans. It is genocide. They're starving them. Canada saw a video yesterday. I'm going to play this video for you. And that was the last straw for Canada. Now, Donald Trump has said, this is really unfortunate, Canada, our neighbor. We will not trade with you if you decide that you're going to consider Palestine an independent state. So what happened is there's already been a lot of calls out, a lot of outrage in, various countries, because they're saying that. And now Israel, of course, just supplied some aid to the Gazans, but it took a long time for them to supply that aid. They wouldn't allow Israel to supply aid, or not Israel, sorry, Egypt, when Egypt tried. And so, because of course, Israel's side is that it's too dangerous for them to bring aid in because Hamas is still around. They're, mixed in with the people. They are the people. And therefore, they don't want to take those chances with their aid workers. Now, a lot of people around the world are saying, well, no, that's not what's happening. What's happening is you're trying to intentionally starve these people to death. And if you've seen the videos and you've seen the photos going around, the campaign right now is that there are babies who are starving. You can see the pictures in the video of children who are starving, who are emaciated, infants who are nothing but a bag of bones. And we know allegedly that the UN has said that 60,000 people along the Gaza and the West Bank have been killed, by Israeli strikes. 60,000. So some of these countries are coming out and they're saying, enough already. We're done with this genocide. We're just going to go ahead and call Palestine an independent state, and we're going to break it away from Israel's control. And therefore, we're going to save these people. And so what finally did it in, good morning, Glesna, what finally did it in for Canada is they saw a UN video. And I'm going to play this UN video for you right now. And the UN video shows, and this is actually from a UN vehicle, they're driving through an aid point, a checkpoint, and ahead of them is the IDF. And they're shooting not at the children, but they're shooting very close to the children. Now, the IDF claims they were firing these shots because they didn't want all of these kids to stampede after the aid truck. So you'll just have to watch it for yourself and judge it for yourself. I don't want to tell you how to think.
It's kids. It's children. Children. Stay there.
So these are all people. We're going to show another video in a second about the aid. Well, actually, you know what? I'll just show it now. And about the aid going into Gaza. There's so many reports about children starving to death, 60,000 people killed. And here's some kids, it's hard, and it really does. It's one of those things that gets to you, that they, as the term goes, tugs at your heartstrings. Because I don't care, we can hate Hamas, we can hate what they've done to Israel and the Israeli people. But at the same time, when you have children, how do you fight Hamas and eradicate Hamas, but yet still make sure the children, the innocent people in the Gaza area, are still able to eat, still have, health care, still have school? It's a very difficult situation, no question about it. And here's some children, some people, some of the not everyone was able to get aid, by the way. There's just not enough aid to reach everyone. And so there was a video about some lentils that had spilled on the ground, and a video of these children and other people scooping up these lentils from the ground. It's a longer video. I'm not going to show the whole video. So then you have to ask yourself, is a genocide really occurring? Does Israel hate the Gazans so much, the people over in this area so much, that they're okay with children starving? Or is it a situation where Hamas is not allowing, maybe the aid is going in, we're being told it's not, and Hamas is not allowing the children to receive food? There's so much that goes on, so much propaganda, right, when it comes to war these days, because the war is fought in the media, isn't it? And it's really tough to know unless you're there on the ground, unless you know the behind the scenes strategy, what's truly taking place. You just don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. Is Israel being truthful when they say that we are and have allowed aid to get in, but we're scared to go in because if we do, we're putting our lives in danger because Hamas is around every corner? Or is it true that what Hamas says, or what the people in this Palestinian area say, where 60,000 of them have been killed, and every day these children are starving to death? I don't know. What I do know is that the world started to turn against Israel, and we had numerous countries speaking up, saying enough of the starvation of children, enough of the genocide. If you do not go in, Israel, and provide aid to these people, we are going to go out. We're going to call Palestine an independent state. And some countries, again, have already done that. And that did prompt Israel to go in and provide aid, which we saw. Not enough aid. And I hope that they provide more aid. And Kim says it's so sad. Drew says, that's sad what they were doing. It's all sad. We hate to see kids starve. And I'm not going to show you. Man, I watched videos yesterday, today, countless videos. I've seen them before today. This has been going on for a long time. But look what happened in Yemen. The same thing happened in Yemen. It's almost like a page out of the playbook of war. Is that, and we, the United States, are very much responsible, along with Saudi Arabia, the poor Yemeni people, which is the Houthis. This is a difficult situation to talk about because it's more than one conversation to explain it all. And the way I've always felt about the Houthis is, the Houthis, we may not like them. We call them a terror organization, but the Houthis are the protectors of the Yemeni. Now, some people say they take advantage of the Yemeni. You got to be in those groups to really know what's truly going on, or be in the country on the ground to know. But because Saudi Arabia was just bombarding Yemen with airstrikes, we, the United States, of course, taking part in that as well. What was it? 250,000 Yemenis died as a result of this war, which, of course, is what gave rise to the Houthis. And there were, gosh, if you look at the Yemenis now, and the starvation that's taking place in that country, the thousands of children that have died because they have no food because of United States sanctions, because of bombings, because of what we've done. That's blood on our hands. It's our fault. It's again a page right out of the war playbook, no question about it. And I hate that's the one side of war I don't like. And just like Tulsi Gabbard said in her video, we, the United States, under a Democrat regime, and they are a regime, they're not a political party. The Democrats are a regime, not a political party. Under Democrat rule, what did we do? We had the industrial war complex ruling this country, not Joe Biden, not Kamala Harris, the industrial war complex. We've always known that. And if we keep wars going, guess what? These people like Pelosi, the Clintons, the Bidens, the Bushes, they all line their pockets with that money, don't they? Many members of Congress, they don't care about these children starving to death. Now, I don't know if that's the same situation that's going on right now in Israel, but it has prompted, again, a lot of these countries to step forward and say, all right, we've had enough. We don't want to see innocent children being shot at. We don't want to see innocent children being starved. Therefore, Israel, we are going against you. We're going to call Palestine a state. Canada, though, Donald Trump, I'm going to read a statement from Donald Trump. He's talking about other things besides this, but he is not going to deal well at all with Canada saying that they're going to recognize Palestine as an independent state. And I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of talk right now about what we're going to do to Canada for this reason. Now, I personally think we need to stay out of it. We need to stay out of my vision is we need to stay out of it. I'm tired of being the police of the world. I really am. If Canada wants to recognize it as an independent state, don't care, quite honestly. I don't think we should be involved in that situation at all. We shouldn't be involved in the situation between Russia and Ukraine at all. Not our business. Me personally, I'm tired of being the police of the world. And I really thought that would end under Donald Trump. And I know he's got a stake. He's got a reason he's doing this. And we have to trust that process, but I don't always agree with it. So this is Donald Trump's statement. He says, I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care. We have done very little businesses with India. Their tariffs are too high, among the highest in the world. Likewise, Russia and the USA do almost no business together. Let's keep it that way and tell Medvedev, the former president of Russia, who thinks he's still president, to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory. That again is referring back to the statement about Medvedev telling Donald Trump, hey, you better be careful threatening us because think about that dead hand switch was, of course, pressing that atomic button. They go on to talk about Canada and how we are potentially going to be filing. I mean, it's kind of crazy, these very heavy tariffs against Canada because of them talking about recognizing Palestine as an official state. It's a pretty crazy situation. And I was trying to find something I'd read about it. I don't see it. Where some deal we just made with Canada, we're talking about rescinding it. Now, Canada has a pipeline, if you recall, that travels from east to west. Now, for Canada to be able to get oil from, I think it's oil or natural gas, I think it's oil, from their east coast to their west coast, it has to loop down into the United States around this Great Lake area and then back up into Canada, and then it continues down to the west. Donald Trump, part of his statement was talking about that pipeline and how, hey, Canada, if you're going to go against us, if you're going to go against Israel, maybe you need to find another place for your pipeline. So we'll see how all that plays out. But today it's probably going to be pretty hot and heavy. And of course, Donald Trump, somehow, why, I don't know, becoming buddies with the UK. And of course, the UK coming out and saying to Israel, if you don't stop this right now, if you don't create peace, if you don't provide aid to these people, we are also going to jump on board and we are also going to consider Palestine an independent state. So those are some things that are going on. Not going to make Donald Trump happy at all. Not at all. And you know what happens when Donald Trump is not happy? So we're going to see how and what he decides to do. I don't know. He's doing his best to be friends with the UK. So I don't see him coming out and making any statement to them publicly. He'll probably do so privately. Canada, on the other hand, is going to get blasted today. This information just came out early this morning after they saw that UN video. They are going to get absolutely blasted. I mean, there are people who are saying, are we going to invade Canada? No, we're not going to invade Canada. But it's definitely not going to be pretty what we do to Canada over this situation. So we'll see if they backtrack on their statement. I don't know. Or maybe Israel will come out, they'll provide enough aid and turn that situation around. And then maybe some of these countries will backtrack on their statement about Palestine being an independent state. One to watch, because I can guarantee you Netanyahu has become Donald Trump's first buddy after Elon Musk has left the picture. As a matter of fact, Elon Musk being very quiet these days, if you've noticed, he's not saying a whole lot of anything. And Netanyahu stepping into the first buddy place. So Donald Trump's not going to put up anybody messing with Israel. So we'll see how, again, that plays out. So we talked about this. I'm going to got one more topic to talk about, that it's time to run. We talked about this, oh gosh, a week ago, several days ago, about AI in the medical field. Remember that? We talked about how, if you go online right now, there's a website called symptoma.com. And if you go on there, you can put in your symptoms and it'll give you the probable likelihood of what you have. So you can do your own research based on the symptoms or test results that you've received. It's called symptoma.com, and it's AI. And they did some studies, which we talked about on the show several days ago, in which AI gave a correct diagnosis more often than doctors did. And, we talked about it at the time. Do you really want AI deciding what type of health condition you have, what the treatment course will be, what type of medication you should take? But that's the way of the future. There's no way to escape AI being involved in the future. I mean, there is a way to escape it. Of course, we could just say no. But as we know, Donald Trump is very much into technology, just like he is very much into cryptocurrency, moving cryptocurrency far forward into the future. Well, he's doing the same for AI technology when it comes to healthcare. So I want you to watch this little video about what Donald Trump has to say about this situation, where we're heading in this direction, and then we'll talk about that for a couple minutes.
But with today's announcement, we take a major step to bring healthcare into the digital age, something that is absolutely vital. You got to do it. Moving from clipboards and fax machines into a new era of convenience, profitability, and speed, and frankly, better health for people. Under the leadership of Administrator Oz, we're officially launching the CMS Digital Health Tech ecosystem to give healthcare providers, insurers, and software companies the tools they need to empower Americans with a 21st century experience on health. The key breakthrough we've made is getting many of the biggest names in the healthcare and technology to agree to industry-wide standards for electronic medical records. All of those great companies that you just heard have gotten together with this group of very brilliant people. I don't know who's more brilliant, them or them. I don't know. Could be them. I hate to tell you. It could very well be them. But I don't know. I'm going to take my team. But the key breakthrough we've made is getting many of the biggest names in healthcare and technology to agree to that those standards of electronic medical records that we talk about and you've heard about for so many years, and now it's happening. This will allow patients to easily transmit information from one doctor to another, even if they're different networks and using different record-keeping systems. No matter what system they use, they're all transferable. The new standards will also make it simple for patients to access their own personal health records. I don't want to see mine, please. I don't want to see. I don't know about you. They have all sorts of things, sir. They can tell you exactly what your problem is going to be in 6 years. We can do it. They have all these different things. I don't know if they work or not, but I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. If they got a problem, I don't want to know about it right now. But it is amazing what they're doing. I don't know. Does it actually work? Can they do that? Yes. All right. Well, then I'm glad I said I don't want to know. But thanks to this announcement, healthcare providers across the country will also finally be able to kill the clipboard. It's an expression that's used, capital, with a capital C, kill the clipboard. Instead of filling out the same tedious paperwork at every medical appointment, patients will simply be able to grant their doctors access to their records at the push of a button, just a button, and you're all set, and all the information the doctor needs will be immediately transmitted. The system will be entirely opt-in, and there will be no centralized government-run database, which everyone is always concerned about. I'm less concerned than anybody. I say whatever it is, but people are very, very concerned about the personal records. They want to keep them very quiet, and that's their choice. I think it's a great thing because it'll be absolutely quiet. Instead, doctors and patients will always remain in control. The benefits to millions of Americans will be enormous. We will save time, we will save money, and most importantly,
Okay, so I'm curious, and thank you, Mick. I hope you have a great day too. What do you think about that? Now, I think this is fantastic. To some degree, I don't want technology to get too involved in my healthcare. God knows I'm having some healthcare struggles right now. But I will tell you what, and what I like about this idea, and maybe what some people might have a fear over. Because, yes, just like Donald Trump said, you absolutely, when it comes to your healthcare, you don't want that information to be given to anyone. Now, me, because I'm here on the show, I feel like you guys are my buddies. I share a lot of information with you in the same way that I share it with my family. Anything that comes up in my health situation, I talk to them first, talk to you guys second. So I'm kind of an open book, which is, what you have to be when you have a show like this. But I feel like I'm sitting down, we're all sitting at the bar talking or sitting at a table talking. So I'm comfortable talking to you guys about healthcare stuff, but I don't want my healthcare to be known to the general public. I don't want just anybody to be able to go online and see anything about my health conditions or my healthcare. It's very private information, and some people aren't even as open as I am about it. They do not want people to know. So it's very important to be able to protect that healthcare information. So when you start thinking about maybe being a little bit lax on the forms you sign about giving access to your healthcare information, I can see where people would be a little bit nervous about that. But something, though, that I really think will come out of this, which I absolutely love, I really do, and I think it will improve the medical care that you receive, will be that all of your doctors can access the same file if you're not hiding anything. Now, there are people out there who hide information on their healthcare, where they go to different doctors to get second opinions, or they're seeing doctors for different things. They don't want this new doctor to know what the old doctor said. That's gonna, if you're one of those people and your different doctors think different things, you don't want it to be cohesive, you're probably not going to like this plan. Now, if someone like myself who has a health condition that is undetermined, they do not know what in the world's going on with me. Maybe it's cancer, maybe it's not, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. They have no idea. It's like putting pieces of the puzzle together. Well, combining all of these health records into one file helps put all those pieces together. I know that if you guys know about my health situation where I had these lung nodules, I've gone to so many different doctors and hospitals because I've moved this and that. Never when I was younger did I think it would make a difference as I got older. That, I have one doctor at St. Luke's, another doctor at St. Louis University, another doctor here or there, or back in the day, you might have to go to an emergency room at a completely different place. And so one doctor in one like SSM has no idea what's going on with a doctor at BJC. They cannot see those records, as an example. Now, what this bill will do, it will pull all of that information together, which I think is fantastic. Now, for me personally, as you guys know, I have these lung nodules, I have the lymph nodes that are enlarged, an enlarged heart. It's like a whole bunch of crazy stuff all mixed together. Well, the doctor I'm seeing for the lung and the lymph node situation, and he has no complete health picture for me. And he told me that on my last visit. He's like, you know what? I can only see your 3 most recent CT scans, or maybe it was 2 at that time. I'm getting ready to get a third next week. And so he's like, I can only see, these exams. I don't have anything to compare your prior chest CTs to. I don't know how these nodules started out. Were they there 5 years ago? Have they grown in those 5 years? I have no idea. So we have to start all over from scratch and then see where they go from here. Well, under Donald Trump's plan, that's not going to be an issue anymore. This doctor I have at St. Louis University, he will be able to see my complete medical profile. He'll be able to go back to the beginning of time and see every CT scan I've ever had, which in my case, and I think in the case of everyone, will put a better picture together. You'll be healthier. Your doctors will serve you better because they'll know, if you've took this medicine, back in 2005, maybe it didn't cause you symptoms then, but maybe you're having complications now because you took it. When you go in and you have all of this different information, then, and Dottie says, my independent doctor can access all medical records on my chart. You just have to give permission. Now, Dottie, for me, my doctors will say, will you give me permission to see what this GI doctor said or this? But the problem is they don't even know where you've been to even ask for permission. They have no idea. Did you go to BJC? Did you go to Mercy? Did you go here? Where'd you get all these CT scans done at? Oh, at all of these places. Oh, over the past 10 years, I've been to all of them. And so, okay, well, I don't have access to those medical records because they're not part of SSM or they're not part of BJC or wherever you go. And then you have to individually give access to all of these different records. So I have personally 3 different my charts. I have one for SSM, I have one for BJC, I have one for a local, primary care doctor. It's all different. And I can't even access all of my medical information in one place. I will be able to going forward, when all of this is implemented, which it'll take the time to get all this implemented. But it's so interesting that this came up because I have an appointment with my lung specialist next week. And and he's always like, I have no idea what your medical history is. I'm like, I don't either because I never paid attention. I never had any problems, so I didn't worry about it. And so going, now, of course, if we were down the road, but so last night I spent some time and I went through my BJC, my chart. I went through my St. Luke's, my chart. St. Luke's has its own my chart. I went through my SSM, my chart. I went all the way back to, I think it was 2015 when I had some type of situation in Florida where I got some of that flesh-eating bacteria. I have a varied medical history, don't I? And they did a CT scan at the time. So I was able to piece together and print out all my CT scans so that when I go to my appointment on August the 6th, I can show him, okay, well, you don't have access to it, but here you go. And I'll tell you what, it was a huge pain to do all of that. And I'm probably sharing way too much information with everyone right now. Dottie says, I have 3 my charts. Exactly, Dottie. Think about a world going forward where you only have one my chart. And then think about the good and the bad that comes from that. Do you really want only one my chart? Because then if somebody nefarious gets into your medical information, they literally see everything, whereas right now, if they break into one of your my charts, they're only going to see a piece of that picture if you've gone to different doctors. But I will be very happy. I was thinking I had 3 my charts, but I actually have 4 my charts and they're all blended together. And it would be really nice, like Donald Trump said, to put those all together, have my doctor, any doctor I go to, be able to see my complete medical history. I would love to know what everyone thinks about that. I see the good and I see the bad, and I think there's more positives than negatives. But we'll see what happens when that's implemented. Of course, it takes a long time for something like this to be implemented. It could be years. In fact, it may not even happen during his term because it'll take so long for all these organizations to come up with a plan and merge all these files together. So we'll see it eventually happen. And but either way, that is all I want to talk about today. We got lots going on tomorrow. I've been reading all of these headlines as they've been coming through. Nothing really too crazy going on since we started the show. More about Canada. I just read a headline that Donald Trump is wanting to potentially hit Canada with a 35% tariff. We'll see where that goes. He's probably going to hit them a lot harder than that today. We'll see. We'll see. A lot of we'll see. Now I'm getting hiccups. But either way, we're going to talk tomorrow. We're going to talk about where are the alien bodies hidden? Where, what military installation have the alien bodies? So much talk about aliens and spaceships lately. By tomorrow, we're going to have a lot more to talk about, news that hasn't even happened yet. So I don't even know where we'll be going. But we are going to talk about the alien bodies. Either way, I hope you guys have a really good day. I am Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap, and we will pick it up again tomorrow. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Since my show is restricted, if you like the show, share the show. At least maybe somebody will see it. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.